Hey guys, it's Cayley. I am back with another what sold from last week video. If you're new here, I do a what sold video every week. I talk about what is selling well for me on both eBay and Poshmark. I do a breakdown of my numbers to kind of keep track of how things that I'm doing in my business are affecting my numbers. And then we will deep dive into some of those individual sales and talk about why they sold and show you guys some tags, some new bolos that you might want to look out for. Let's just jump right in. All right, you guys, so all the sales we're going to be talking about happen between July 14th through the 20th. That is a Sunday through a Saturday. In total, I sold 264 items for a gross item sales total, which is basically just the items, not including what I received in shipping, of around $8,200. Average sale price did go up from the previous video, which I'm happy about because that was super low, up to around $31. Need to be getting this back up closer to 40, but I think we'll do that here soon, just because, fall and winter is coming up. We're starting to sell some more substantial pieces, so looking forward to that going back up closer to 40. My average sale price on eBay was exactly where I want it to be, between 35 and 40. It was almost $37 on eBay, which I thought was awesome. And then on Poshmark, I obviously had some lower price sales and cleared out a lot of older inventory per usual. My average sale price on Poshmark was around $2,200. So overall, a very good week. I am still doing promoted listings. I have not changed a single thing since I started doing it. I'm still using the same campaigns, like all of that. And then just, adding promoted listings to anything that goes active. So just keeping you guys in the loop with that. Let's dive into some of these individual sales. I tried to pull some stuff that we hadn't talked about before. There are quite a few different brands in here. You guys, I don't think I've ever mentioned on my channel, so I'm excited to share some of that with you. This first one is a Coach bag. I think we all know Coach can be a bolo, but it's been a while since we've talked about Coach. I just wanted to reiterate, the only Coach items that I tend to pick up are the older styles, very classic looking, and this would be an example of one of those, and they tend to also have a turn lock, turn lock closure key, this little thing right here. So any kind of Coach bag, neutral color, just more of a classic look, in my opinion, are the ones that sell best for me. So this one was called the Penelope Pebbled Leather Bag. We listed it for $50. It did sell for our full asking price, and this one sold within 2 days of getting it listed. Next up, this is a newer brand to me. I think it's called The Great Fantastic is the brand. I don't know if it's The Great Fantastic or Swoveralls is what they call them, sweat overalls. But either way, this particular style in this particular brand is a new bolo to me. They have a little logo on the back pocket as well, so that should help you to figure it out. But pretty much a lot of overalls, especially the slouchy ones, are doing good, but this is a specific brand and style that they are known for that has a very high sell-through rate. I listed these at $50. It did sell for our full asking price, and this one took a couple of months to sell. Next up, this is a brand I don't sell very often. It has to be a very specific piece. It is Everlane. This one had a lot of factors going for it, which is why I picked it up. It is a longer length dress. It is made out of linen. It is a size extra large. Everlane is a fantastic brand. They they use sustainable materials, very high quality stuff. It's just, unfortunately, it got popular really quickly, and then everybody was trying to resell it. So you have to be kind of particular with the jeans you pick up or any other piece outside of it. Make sure you look it up. But when all of the stars align, as we say, as this did, it can be a great piece. So I listed this at $45. It sold for full asking price, and it actually sold the exact same day we listed it. Next up, this is another item and brand. It really depends on what you have, but this is a category I've been doing very well in, which is swimsuits, specifically one-piece swimsuits in larger sizes. This is a Torrid size 6, which Torrid size 4, 5, and 6, all of those larger sizes are harder to come by, so they tend to have a higher sell-through rate. So I personally like picking up the larger sizes in Torrid and just about anything, but swimsuits definitely is a good category to look for in Torrid. This one I was lucky enough to get new with tags, and I also think not just a one piece, but the one pieces that look like dresses in just about any brand are selling very well right now. I listed this high at $50. It's sold on an offer to watcher for $42. And this one took a couple of months to sell. Next up, this is a brand you're definitely want to keep your eye out for fall and winter. It is Icebreaker. They are known for their wool pieces. They also make a lot of wool base layers, which I think is what they are most well known for. You can see it has a lot of branding throughout. This one is called the Min Sierra Merino Wool Jacket. I listed this at $50. It's sold on an offer to watcher for $42. This sold within a couple of weeks. Next up, this is a very niche bolo that you're going to want to look for. It is vintage Y2K West Coast chopper stuff. I've sold so many of these. This is more of a classic black and white West Coast chopper shirt, so it sold for a little bit more, but there are all kinds of colors and graphics. You can at least get $25 for them. They still have a very good sell-through rate, so keep your eye out for West Coast chopper stuff. And then if you have like a more classic color like this, really look up the color and the graphic, because you might be able to ask for more like I did with this one. I listed this for $50. It sold for my full asking price. It sold the next day, the very next day after listing it. So again, get to know your graphic t-shirts. It is a good category to know. Another category I love selling during summer that sells well for me every single year are vintage Hawaiian dresses. This is not a brand I'm familiar with. It is Cimarron, made in USA, but it is a vintage Hawaiian dress, button up front, longer length, pretty colors. Listed this one for $45. It did sell for full asking price, and it took a few months to sell. This was probably my favorite sale just because I went back and forth at the thrift store. Do I get it? Do I not get it? Do I feel confident enough in this aesthetic? I'm starting to get really good. I was already good at the Y2K stuff just because I grew up during that time. But the fairy and the fairy goth stuff, I am starting to feel very confident in. And I think it's because it's like part of the Y2K trend. This is the brand Deb. I'm not sure if you guys ever went to a Deb store, but it was cheaper stuff. So it's not, this is the thing with all these Y2K brands, like people are looking for these and they're selling for so much money, but back when you bought it, it was known for being kind of a discount store. So that's kind of the reason I went back and forth on this. It did have very like whimsy goth fairy details to it with the sparkles. The reason I went so back and forth with it was because it was a midi dress, but it was like a shorter midi dress. The asymmetric details made it midi, but it was slightly shorter. It was on the shorter end of a midi dress. And so for that reason, I went back and forth, and the fact that it was Deb, but it did scream fairy to me. I ultimately ended up getting it. I paid $8 for it. Listed this for $50. I totally think now looking back, I could have gotten more because it sold extremely quickly within 5 days of getting it listed for my full asking price of $50. So definitely keep your eye out, get to know this aesthetic. If you are not familiar with it, we do have a ton of deep dives on all of the trending aesthetics on Reseller's Edge. So definitely get your money's worth. Come on, you'll have immediate access to all of our replays, our course materials, documents, style slideshows, bolo list, all that great stuff. And then any future live calls in the Facebook group you'll have immediate access to. But this is the stuff that we are doing deep dives on so that everybody feels very confident on what they are picking up. And I mean, who would have thought, right? A Deb dress, $50. Next up, this is a newer brand to me. It is Metalita. This is a higher end, obviously medical wear brand. This is a lab coat, and I originally picked this up when the comps did not have a 100%, but the ones that were selling for a lot. There just wasn't a lot of information. So I decided to go ahead and test it out. This one did take a few months to sell for me, a little bit longer than I would like, but it did end up selling for around $40, which I think is really good for a pre-owned kind of workwear item. So I thought it was a brand worth sharing with you. Next up, I've got a couple of dresses like these in today's video where they are mall brands that sold for quite a bit. I feel like I am really niching down in the dress category and learning a lot about, the little pockets of bolos within certain mall brands. This is a Banana Republic women's midi dress. It was chambray, button up. There was just lots of factor stacking involved. Larger size with a size 14. I listed this high at $40, which is crazy high for Banana Republic pre-owned. And it sold on an offer to watcher for $34. And it sold the exact same day that I got it listed, which I think is really, really cool. Next up, this is not my favorite, but definitely one of my favorites. It might be my favorite men's brand to sell. It is Taylor Stitch. Still very strong, one of the top selling men's brands. If you come across anything Taylor Stitch, I would probably pick it up. I mean, this is a plain t-shirt. I listed it for $40. It sold for my full asking price. So for a pre-owned t-shirt, especially plain, very high quality materials, very good following. So keep your eye out for Taylor Stitch. This is a newer brand to me. This is Piglet. I got this in wholesale. I felt like it was kind of risky to pick up because there wasn't a lot of information about it, but you could tell that this was a higher end pajama line. This was also a pair of linen shorts, so it wasn't the full set, so slightly risky. But I am glad we picked it up. We kind of had to make up a price just because there wasn't a lot of info about it. Listed it at $40. It did sell for our full asking price. This did take a few months to sell, however, but for a single pre-owned pajama piece, $40 is amazing. So keep your eye out for this brand, Piglet. Definite bolo, especially for the upcoming season, men's and women's Pendleton wool pieces. Specifically, the men's wool shirts like this one are an all day long bolo. This one is called the Sir Pendleton. I also always say if you ever see a Pendleton item with a specified style name, like this one says Sir Pendleton, it's probably a bolo, so make sure to look it up. We listed this one at $40. It sold on an offer to watcher for $34. And this one did take a few months to sell. However, we listed it at the beginning of spring, so it would make sense that it would take slightly longer to sell. But honestly, you guys have seen in the What Sold videos, we've been selling these even in the middle of summer, which is kind of crazy. Next up, this is another style-based sale. This is another one of those fairy Y2K sales. I would not memorize this brand. It's by the brand Delicates. It is not even a silk slip dress. It just had that aesthetic to it. Very pretty, feminine, dainty details. And we listed this for $40. We got it at the bins. It did have a couple of tiny spots, but it did end up selling and sold on an offer to watcher for $34. And surprisingly, this only took a couple of weeks to sell. And I feel like you can find these all day long at your thrift store, and the bins just has to have the right aesthetic. All right, next up, this is a very high sell-through rate brand still. It is Free Fly. Definitely keep your eye out for Free Fly. These pair of shorts were not the case, but most of their pieces are made out of bamboo, which is what they're known for. And their logo are these three wavy lines. Even though these Free Fly women's kind of sporty shorts were not bamboo, they still had a fantastic sell-through rate. I listed these for $40. They sold on an offer to watcher for $34, and they only took 4 days to sell. This is a category that is very trendy. It is skirts, meaning there are shorts underneath of the skirt. This is Stella McCartney Adidas collaboration. Definitely keep your eye out for this collaboration, specifically in skirts, but tennis gear, skirts, athletic stuff, still very trendy. Listed this for $30. It's sold on an offer to watcher for $25. And this one took about a month to sell. This was such a gorgeous find. I was actually surprised at how quickly this sold. I found this at a Goodwill. I only paid $5 for it. It is Dolce & Gabbana, and it was a gorgeous satin like cami top. Gold details, had the lace, kind of a baby doll Y2K look to it. Excellent condition as well. I listed this at $150. It sold for my full asking price, and it sold the same day we listed it. I honestly thought I listed this a little high just because sold comps, like that's just where everybody else was listing at, and I listed it I think slightly higher, but maybe I could have gotten more. I am very happy with that $150 price. I used to skip on the tank top section, which, to be honest with you, I like blaze through it. I do not spend a whole lot of time there, but I do keep my eye out for these kind of Y2K looking tank tops in the sleeveless top section. All right, next up, I sold another pair of shoes, surprisingly, through the eBay Authenticity program. So Hoka's is definitely one of those brands. I know you guys offered a lot of info in the comments when I sold those Nikes, just because I'd never been a part of this program before. So thank you guys for all of the information. I feel a lot more confident in it now, but I had to take these to FedEx, or actually one of my employees did. So that's frustrating. I wish it could just go through USPS, but it is what it is. It's like it throws a wrench in our plans for the day when we have to drive somewhere else to go to FedEx. But I'm still happy with the sale. These were a pair of Hoka One women's Bondi shoes, all black, and Hoka's is I won't say a total bolo, but it seems to be a bolo in most styles. And Hoka is still a very strong brand. You just really need to look up the exact style and size you have, because not every style and size is a bolo, but I would say a lot of them are. I listed this one for $115. It did sell for a full asking price, and it took about a month and a half to sell, and like I said, went through that authenticity guarantee program through eBay. Next up, this is a category you are definitely going to want to be looking for fall and winter. They are men's really nice dressy kind of business looking coats. This would be an example of one of them. This is a Ralph Lauren men's wool cashmere blend coat, size 44R. Especially, wools and cashmeres, but just these overcoat looks very well. We didn't do it in this one, but I usually also put the keyword dressy in the title, but this is definitely an aesthetic to look for. I listed this for $100. It sold on an offer to watcher for $85, and I only paid $5. So that was a really awesome flip. Typically, these dressier coats can be more of a longer tail sell, meaning they might take like up to 6 months possibly. But if you've got any of these, list them now, because fall and winter is definitely when they are going to sell. All right, next up, this is the brand Gunny Sacks. This is a vintage prairie skirt. I like showing these because I think a lot of the times we think it's just dresses for Gunny Sacks, but they also make separates, which can perform well. This one I did sit on for a little bit longer than I would have liked, about 6 months at this point. But it did end up selling for $91, which was my dropped price. So I was very happy with that sale. This is a Lilly Pulitzer item in a size large. It was also new with tags. I thought this was a fun sale that I would show you just because the retail value is $108 and we sold it for $75 with defects, new with defects. Usually you can't get close to retail price, especially with defects, and it just goes to show how much strength this brand has if you have the right piece. I know that Lily Pulitzer size large and up definitely has a huge following, so keep your eye out for it. So this sold, like I said, for our full asking price of $75, and this did take a couple of months to sell. Next up, cashmere is starting to sell for us. Anything 100% cashmere I am looking for. Specifically, if it says made in Scotland or Ireland or something like that, and sweaters we are looking for. This is a vintage Johnston's of Elgin cashmere sweater. I listed it for $75. It sold for our full asking price, and it only took a couple of weeks to sell. Cashmere. It has been selling a ton for us, even in the dead of summer. So get your cashmere pieces listed. This is a St. John piece. This is a wool cardigan, size large, really pretty bright green colors. This one did have quite a few issues. It had some holes, it had some spots, lots of things going with it, but it was a very unique piece. We still listed it higher at $75. It did sell for our full asking price, but it did take a few months to sell. Next up, this is another kind of Hawaiian type dress. This is the brand Tory Richard. This is one of their newer labels, but their vintage stuff also performs well. It is made in Hawaii. It was a size large and a beautiful multicolored dress. Not everything in this brand sells, so sell-through rate can be low in some pieces. You got to make sure you have the right piece, but all the factors were really good with this, with the multicolor kind of wave cloud print. Listed this for $70. It sold on an offer to Watcher for $59. And this one took about 3 weeks to sell. Next up, this is a newer brand to me. It is Michelle Farmer. Main reason I wanted to show this to you was because it was a cashmere sweater, and again, cashmere is selling, so keep your eye out for it. This I have been sitting on since winter, so it took another season rolling around for it to sell, but I am still glad it sold, and it sold for a good price of $55. Which is, awesome for a pre-owned item. Again, that cashmere really pulling it through. This is a newer brand to me as well. Very hard to read, but it is Raquel Allegra. This is a designer brand. Does not have 100% sell-through rate, but if you have the right piece, it can perform well. I've told you guys before, but higher end feeling tie-dye pieces have been doing very well for me. So that is kind of why we took a risk on this tie-dye shirt. It was designer. It felt like very high quality tie-dye. Listed this for $50. It did sell for our full asking price despite a very slow sell-through rate. Just because, again, all of those factors were there and we could market to many buyers. It actually sold the same day that we listed it. So I think we priced it very well to get it to move quickly. Moving on to some of the Poshmark sales, this would be another example of a mall brand that we sold a dress for quite a bit for. This is Old Navy, one of my favorite brands to sell. I am going to start slowing down on their dresses. I actually have started slowing down, but very soon we're probably going to stop picking them up just because they are more bread and butter. They are slightly risky. They are more style based, and we're about to come out of dress season. This one is a midi dress. It is tiered, cottage, prairie, lots of different keywords we included there. We listed it for around $35. It sold on an offer on Poshmark, which I believe was one that Posherva automatically sends out, for $29. $29 pre-owned Old Navy, size large. That is an awesome sale. Next up, this is Free People. I am very picky with Free People, but I just wanted to say these one-piece items in lots of brands, especially when they're slouchy or oversized like this, are performing very well in a lot of brands. So just wanted to show you this aesthetic. This was called the Yara Romper. It sold for $51 pre-owned on Posh. This is also a newer brand to me. It is called Stone Cold Fox. There is not a very good sell-through rate on this, but the ones that are selling for quite a bit. So we thought it was worth risking it on. This is like I said, a very high-end brand, kind of niche, and they also have their own sizing. I think we originally listed this for $150. It sold on an offer for $127. Next up, this is another kind of like Y2K fairy inspired piece, none of which we used in our title or keywords, but it's still sold. But you know, slip dresses, especially vintage slip dresses and Victoria's Secret, can perform well. This is an older label. It is not silk, but it does have all those feminine features, an ivory color. It could have gone lots of different ways with you know, style aesthetics, and this ended up selling for $40. And these dresses you're probably going to find in the pajamas section, so don't pass on that section. This is another torrid piece. I mentioned before, larger sizes. This is a size 4X. It is a pre-owned dress, maxi length. It sold for $34. I do have some decent luck with torrid longer length dresses, but there have to be a lot of factors. In this case, the biggest factor pulling this one through is that it was a size 4 and it was kind of cottagecore. This is another Old Navy dress. It sold also for $29. This is a size 3X. It is kind of a ballet core style. I've been seeing a lot of brands put this out. I actually own a dress just like this in a different brand from Target. Ballet core is a good keyword to use on dresses like this. Very trendy. It sold for $29. Next up, this is a men's vintage piece. This is vintage Polo Ralph Lauren. Polo Ralph Lauren sweatpants perform very, very well, especially when they are like a vintage Y2K and especially when they are larger size. You can see I was able to get $51, an offer for $51 on Posh for these pre-owned vintage Polo by Ralph Lauren sweatpants. So definitely keep your eye out for men's Polo Ralph Lauren sweatpants. Also a Bolo brand, this is Wearables. This is by the brand XCVI. It is one of their lines. It doesn't always say XCVI, so you have to be aware of what this Wearables line is. But XCVI with the login look trend is still very, very trendy and has a pretty decent sell-through rate. So I continue picking it up in just about anything. Their better stuff are the wide leg pants. These are a pair of skinny pants, but they still performed very well and sold for $34. This is a shapewear intimates brand that still has a fantastic sell-through rate and is selling for quite a bit. It is Honey Love. These are a pre-owned pair of shapewear shorts. If you find the larger sizes, they're going to perform better. This is a size 2X. It sold for $25. I've sold their bras close to $40-50 pre-owned. This is a designer brand in the men's department called Alex Mill. Their stuff performs pretty well, generally speaking. They have some pretty nice stuff, but this was a cashmere sweater, so it sold for a lot more. It went for $70, so definitely, again, keep your eye out for cashmere. This is a Lauren Ralph Lauren skirt. I love finding Lauren Ralph Lauren longer length skirts. This is a silk larger size in a size 16. It went for $35. I usually list them for around $40, which is probably where we listed this one for, and then it sold on that offer to watcher. This is a new-ish brand to me. I don't come across it very often, but it has been performing very well. So if you find it, I would definitely keep your eye out for it. Pop Flex. This is a women's, it was called the Cloud Full Zip sweatshirt. It sold for $45 pre-owned. Trying to remember what else I've sold in Pop Flex. Like I said, I don't come across it very often, so keep your eye out for it. Another new-ish brand to me, I've mentioned this before, it is Daily Drills. They sell shorts, but they also sell shirts and a couple other things. This one is a linen blend women's shirt, size extra small. It sold for $57. There are some really great sell-through rates for Daily Drills, so definitely a newer brand to keep your eye out for. This is Amanda Uprichard. It is a designer brand. It has a very poor sell-through rate. If you look it up, you have to be very specific on the pieces you get. But I have noticed these very like flirty pink colored items tend to perform well. This is called the Clarabelle dress. It was pink. It is very feminine and flirty. It sold for $48. And lastly, another example of a dress that sold in a brand we hardly ever get, but is embodied in like, you know, the aesthetics that people are looking for right now. This is just Sam Edelman. I definitely would not keep your eye out for this brand, but this is a very trendy aesthetic with the high-low, very feminine floral details. It sold for $50. All right, guys, so that's it for what sold last week. Hope that you guys enjoyed watching. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.